Hello, today is July 19th, 2024. We always start with our disclaimer first, go over our calls, make some predictions. So my trading plan for next Monday, which is July 22nd, 2024. Remember, my calls can be wrong, trade at your own risk. Next week I have a lot of personal business. I won't be able to watch the market for much of the week and may not be risking any of my own money on these calls. We look for the pattern today with the early low tends to have an early low, late high, and a drop in the middle of the day. That certainly happened. And Monday's pattern should have the early high. We said if we could hold on to these lows that we could have a rally back to a blue trend line. That is not the chart I want. You said we could have a rally back to this trend line at some point. We certainly should. And I said if we could hold yesterday's lows, we had a good chance to do it on Friday. We didn't hold the lows, so there's no trade there. This is just a reminder of what we said. I think any trade here is any long trade is going to be a counter trend trade. I'm not really a fan of making counter trend trades this early in what I think will be a major drop. I might miss a few long trades, but I don't care. I think the big money is going to be made on the downside. And I think that's the easier path to identify. These are the patterns we should see next week. We get to cross an old target off the list, 55.1942. Look at resistance right at that number. It's a beautiful thing. Earlier this month, when the market was rallying and leaving all these targets behind, I was pretty adamant they wouldn't stay left behind forever. It seemed like way out of reach as recently as Tuesday's close. Sure doesn't seem way out of reach now, and I think it's a matter of time before all these numbers print. We do have higher targets generated by the system. Early on, it said this drop isn't for keeps, gives us an optional target, 55.4982. If it doesn't print by Monday, we'll forget it, but prints 95% of the time. We also have a target of 55.4116, most likely by Tuesday's open. I'm not a fan of playing the long side this early in the major decline. If we hit this number, there should be resistance. I hadn't just passed it, and I think for that reason it'll be helpful in this number too. But I'm not going to risk money on the long side playing for those. I'm going to look at these as resistance areas if we do go up. I realize I might miss some trades. I don't care. This is the DeMark top signal. We said if it didn't have to drop, but if it did, it would be a doozy. This is a drop. It should be a doozy. We have resistance at support, rather, at 58.43. And this is from an old TDST line. It's not part of this pattern. And we have support at 5,064.20. 5,064.20 is the TDST line, which originated the 913.9 pattern. There's support at and just under the line. This number is one I'd remember because we're going to come back to something close to this number later on, 5,064.20. And here's the weekly chart with support about 51.27 and change. These are kind of low for me. I don't think we're going down there. Well, the real question is how low can we go? We'll come to the short-term picture in a minute. Let's take a look at the long-term picture first. Well, I think any attempt to call it bottom after just 3 days of drop is fraught with danger. I think it's kind of a waste of time, but doesn't mean I can't make a guess as long as we don't risk money on it. This was a major low here back in October. I think that's going to hold. I would like us to stay over this 200-day moving average. The average is going up, so I think we'll bottom out over 49.50. The June FOMC announcement price was 54.3260. We traded 237 handles over that. I would like us to go at least 237 handles under that price, so we should trade at or under 51.95.53. I have an ultimate target from May the 9th of 51.89.72. These don't fail very often. They get about one failure every 3 years, so I like us to go under 51.89.72. Usually you're going to get a Fibonacci retrace of this rally. The minimum would be 38.2, and that's 5,071 and change. That is close enough to the 5,064 TDST line to give us a reasonable support area with a good chance to hold. It's over the 49.50 200-day line, which is rising. So if that keeps rising, it's conceivable it could hit 5,071.58, where there'd be support from Fibonacci and from the TDST line. So if we have to make a guess, I think that's a reasonable target for this. But regardless of whether it's right or wrong, I think we're going to drop for months, even though I really want us to hit this blue line first, which is over 5,600. It's hard to catch the knife here, but if we do rally, you can at least count this decline with it as an ABC with good fibs. This is usually a bullish pattern, and we did hold on to these lows. So maybe, cross your fingers, we can gap up, take this out early, and get the normal pattern. If it happens, I think we can go higher still, over 5,600. But that hasn't happened yet, and if that's not what happens, it's tough to stand in the way of a freight train like this. But we don't know how Monday's going to open. You never know. We do have the inability to take out these lows. We do have a pattern which doesn't finish trading until Monday and usually goes up. And we do have the higher targets. I'm not risking money on it, but if we go up, could go higher. We have a spike of sorts in the volume on the E-mini contract. There tends to be a relationship in terms of time to these spikes in a low. We traded lower today, much lower, but the volume's starting to dry up. Cross your fingers if you're a bull. We're going to have to use the mixed signals rules. Commonest thing is a gap and a prompt move outside the day's range. Sometimes you don't do much and wait until Tuesday. So Monday's pattern has the early high regardless of where we open. Here are the patterns. We have higher MEJT targets. Unless we gap down smartly, the rules call for them to print. System tends to leave failed targets at major changes in trend. We are just way too far from the all-time high for that to apply. Nevertheless, I'm just going to ignore the higher targets from now. We're in the early stages of a major decline. I may miss some long trades. I don't care. We have mixed signals that is bullish. We have higher targets. It's bullish. The strong decline couldn't close under intraday lows. And it's bullish. The trend line that broke this week should be retested at some time. Doesn't have to be right now. It's negative. Today's normally bullish pattern was bearish, and we declined into the close on a Friday. Usually that follows through, but if it gaps up, that's bullish. So we'll have to use the mixed signals rules. Once again, when you're dropping like a stone like this, it's tough to pick bottoms. I think we have much lower to go. It doesn't mean we go there in a straight line, and bear market rallies can be some of the market's strongest rallies. If we do start one, I can explain it. But we have much further to go on the downside over the next few months, and I'm just looking for places to initiate short positions. Be aware if you sell this right now, you could be selling into a hole, but you never know. It's a pattern with the early high, and that's today's call.